I was standing barefoot in my kitchen, stirring a pot of pasta, when I heard the knock. 3 sharp raps, loud, deliberate, and unfamiliar. I wasn't expecting anyone. My apartment was my sanctuary. After years of scraping by, bouncing between roommates and sleeping on threadbare couches, I finally had a place of my own. A clean, sunlit one, bedroom with plants on the windowsill, books lining the walls, and silence, precious, undisturbed silence. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked to the door. I glanced through the peephole, then my heart stilled. It was her, my mother, and standing smugly beside her, arms crossed and wearing a designer hoodie, was my younger brother, Ethan. The golden boy, the prince, the parasite. My hands trembled as I opened the door. "Hi, sweetheart," my mother said, voice sticky, sweet like honey laced with arsenic. "We thought we'd stop by." I stood frozen, the door halfway open, unsure whether to hug her or slam it shut. What are you doing here?" I finally managed. She tilted her head like I'd asked something silly. "We were in the area. Can we come in? It's chilly." I should have said no, but old habits die hard. I stepped aside. They sat on my couch like they owned it. My mother looked around with wide eyes, like she was inspecting a property she was about to buy. Ethan slouched beside her, scrolling on his phone. "This place is nice," she said slowly. "Bigger than I expected. Must be expensive." I stood across from them, arms folded, heart thumping. "I manage," I said. "How much are you making now?" she asked casually, her eyes narrowing just slightly. There it was, the question behind the knock. I didn't answer. She leaned forward. "Ethan told me you're doing really well. Something about 6 figures, investments, remote work." I looked at Ethan. He was still staring at his screen, a smirk playing on his lips, of course. He'd been stalking my LinkedIn, maybe saw something on social media. A photo, a job update. I'd let myself be visible for the first time in years, and now here they were sniffing around like wolves at the door. I didn't reply. "So proud of you," she continued. "All those years you spent well, finding yourself, it paid off." She said it like I'd been wasting time. Like I hadn't spent every night working 2 jobs while taking online courses. Like I hadn't been left to raise myself while she pampered Ethan and called me dramatic when I cried. I took a deep breath. "Why are you here, Mom?" There was a pause. She leaned back, crossing her legs. "Well," she said, "your brother is going through a rough patch." I almost laughed. Ethan hadn't worked a real job in his life. He dropped out of college, crashed 2 cars, and lived off her money that, as far as I knew, came from government support, and some dead end retail job she barely held on to. "I told her you could help," Ethan said, finally looking up. "You're rich now, right?" The gall. "I'm not rich," I said carefully. "I'm stable, that's not the same." My mother smiled. "That's sweet. But we're family, and family helps family." There it was. "I need you to support your brother for a while," she said, "just until he gets back on his feet." "How long is a while?" I asked, voice tight. "A few months, maybe a year." I stared at her. $4, $500 a month. She added, "That should cover rent, food, transportation. He's trying to figure things out." I blinked. "Once, twice, $4,500. I repeated, making sure I'd heard right. Ethan shrugged. "LA is expensive. I live in Portland." "Well, I'm not moving to Portland." He scoffed. "I've got friends in LA, a network. You wouldn't get it." I turned to my mother. "You're serious?" I asked. She nodded, expression calm. "You owe us, sweetheart, after everything." That was the moment something broke in me. Everything? What was everything? The missed birthdays. The way she screamed at me when I cried. The time she pawned my laptop to cover Ethan's weed debt. The way she told me to stop acting like a victim every time I asked her why he got love while I got silence. "I don't owe you anything," I said, barely above a whisper. My mother's smile dropped. "Excuse me, I don't owe you." I repeated louder now. "Not a dime, not a favor, nothing." Her face hardened. "We're blood." "No," I said. "We're a story I've tried to close the book on." Ethan stood. "Wow, so now you're better than us." "No," I said. "I'm just done being less." They left 10 minutes later. Not before shouting, not before guilt, tripping, not before she said, "You'll regret this when we're gone." I didn't cry when the door shut. I didn't move for a long time, either. I just stood there in my warm apartment, the scent of garlic and basil lingering in the air, listening to the echo of their entitlement bouncing off my walls. They'd found out I had money, so they came, not to reconnect, not to make peace, but to take again. But this time they knocked on the wrong door, and this time I wasn't a scared, starving kid waiting to be seen. The night they left, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, heart pounding like it had when I was a kid, listening for footsteps in the hallway, afraid to breathe too loud in case someone found a reason to yell. It was like their visit had ripped open a part of me I'd spent years burying. I hadn't thought about that house in a long time. The one where I grew up, if you could even call it growing, then it was always cold. Winter or not, the heat barely worked, and Mom said blankets were luxuries for the lazy. We had space heaters in the rooms, but Ethan got the only working one. When I complained, she said, "He's delicate. He gets sick easily. You're fine." I used to wake up early to warm my clothes under the blanket with my body heat before school. Ethan never went. Or if he did, it was with new shoes, a warm coat, and a lunch bag packed by her. I'd eat from the cafeteria if there was money left on my lunch card. Most days there wasn't, and yet I wanted her to see me. I brought home report cards with straight A's. I cleaned the house before she got home from work. I even took care of Ethan when he'd come back high or drunk, passing out on the porch steps. But no matter what I did, her eyes always passed over me like I was wallpaper. I was the responsible one, so I didn't need love. I was the quiet one, so I didn't need praise. I was fine, always fine, until I wasn't. Now I got up before the sun and sat at my desk, the one I'd built with my own money, my own hands, in my own apartment. My job, remote product designer, paid well. Not overnight, not magically. It took years. Side hustles, temp jobs, ramen for dinner. Rejection emails, interviews where they asked for a degree I couldn't afford. I built myself from the scraps of what they didn't destroy. And now they wanted to reap the harvest of what they refused to help plant. I opened my laptop and searched for Ethan's name. Sure enough, his social media was wide open. His latest post, a story from some beach party, glass in hand, shirtless, expensive sunglasses. The caption read, "Some people grind, others are born to be taken care of, smiling face with sunglasses." The anger in my chest didn't even rise anymore. It just sat there, like old smoke in a burned room, but the pain, that still lived in me. Because part of me, the part that still wanted to be loved, kept whispering, maybe this time, if I help them, they'll finally see me. It was a lie. But it was a familiar one. I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years, my 17th birthday. She forgot. I came home from school to an empty house, no card, no cake, not even dinner. Ethan had a friend over. They were blasting music in the living room, laughing, smoking. I sat in my room in the dark. Around midnight, Mom came home laughing, tipsy, red lipstick smudged at the corner of her mouth. "Oh," she said when she saw me, "was today your birthday?" I nodded. She stared at me for a moment, then went to her room without another word. That night, I decided to leave. It took another year to save, but I did. I left the day after graduation. No note, no call, just silence, and they never came looking, until now. Later that day, I got a text. "Mom, I hope you had time to think. You're being selfish. Ethan needs help. You have more than enough." I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over block, but I didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, I opened my email and began typing. Subject: opportunity for Ethan. I crafted a job offer. Completely fake, but realistic. A role that would require effort. Interviews, training, relocation to my city. Just to see what they'd say, just to confirm what I already knew. Within 10 minutes, Ethan replied, "Too much work. Just send the money." I sat back. That was it, the final confirmation. They didn't want a relationship. They wanted a bank account with my name on it. They thought success meant they could come and carve out a piece of me, like I was still that desperate kid under a thin blanket. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I stood up and walked to the mirror. I didn't see a scared child anymore. I saw someone who had survived everything they'd thrown at me, and still had the heart to feel the hurt. That was strength, that was power, and I was ready to use it, not to hurt, but to heal on my terms. 3 weeks passed. No more texts, no more knocks on my door, but I knew it wasn't over. They weren't the kind of people who accepted no. They just waited, like rust in the rain, slowly eating through anything that stayed still too long. But I wasn't staying still anymore. I'd made peace with the fact that they never loved me the way I needed. Maybe they never could. Maybe they didn't know how. But that didn't mean I had to keep the cycle alive. I was done bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand me a bandage, but I still needed closure. Not revenge in the toxic, burn, everything, down kind of way, though I'd be lying if I said I didn't imagine it. No, this was different. This was about teaching them something they'd never been taught, accountability. I waited until Ethan posted another story, this time, at some rooftop bar, bragging about living soft while others grind. It was almost too easy. Using an old freelance email I had from a fake design agency I once created for a school project, I sent him a message. Subject urgent, brand influencer opportunity. Hi Ethan. We're working on a project that fits your profile perfectly. Lifestyle, fashion, subtle humor, it's right up your alley. The campaign pays €60/month with bonuses, requires a bit of content creation, and is based in Portland. Let us know if you're interested. There's an onboarding process, interview, and a few trial tasks. If you pass, we fly you in. All expenses covered, looking forward to hearing from you. The agency team, he replied in under an hour. Hell yeah, finally someone sees the vision fire. Of course. The setup, I built it all. A fake company site. A training portal. A 2-week onboarding full of small, annoying tasks that required actual effort. Submitting drafts, recording sample videos, writing scripts. And he did it sloppily, late, complaining the whole time, but he did it because he thought money was waiting at the end. Once he passed, I told him there was one final step, a live pitch to the creative director, on Zoom. I'd booked a fancy co-working space downtown, and told him the meeting was there, in person, business casual. He flew in the next morning, paid for it himself, like I'd suggested. I watched him walk into that glass office space, wearing a wrinkled shirt and sunglasses on his head, holding a fake portfolio. I'd told him to prepare. He looked nervous for the first time, and when he opened the conference room door, I was waiting inside. He froze. What the F? Sit down, I said calmly. He dropped into the chair like a kid caught stealing cookies. I don't get it, he muttered. What is this? Where's the job? I slid a file across the table. It had everything. Screenshots of his messages, his social posts, his texts to Mom where he laughed about guilt, tripping me for cash. You're not here for a job, Ethan, I said. You're here for a wake-up call. He snorted. You set me up. No, I said. I set myself free. The argument started right on cue. You're messed up, he spat. You wasted my time, I laughed. You wasted my life, a few days of pretending to work. Welcome to what I did for years, while you partied and got handed everything. He rolled his eyes. Mom said you'd be dramatic. Yeah, I said. She always said that right before ignoring me, gaslighting me, or taking something that was mine to give to you. I'm family. He said, blood. No, I corrected. You're a user, and blood doesn't mean I have to bleed for you anymore. He stood to leave, but I wasn't done. You can tell Mom I won't block her. I want her to see how good I'm doing without her, without either of you. He stopped at the door. You'll regret this, he muttered. No, I said. But you might someday when the money runs out, when Mom has nothing left to give, and you realize the only person who ever learned how to stand on their own 2 feet was me. The aftermath, he was gone by the next morning. No goodbye, no confrontation, just a silent exit, but the silence was different this time. It wasn't the silence of being ignored. It was the silence of peace. A week later, I got another text from my mother. I don't know what you said to him. He's sulking and blaming me now. You happy? I didn't reply. She followed up. You think you're better than us now. Still, I said nothing, but I smiled. Because I was better, not in the arrogant way she meant. I was better because I healed, because I grew. Because I stopped begging for the love I deserved and started giving it to myself instead. Epilogue: some people think revenge is about hurting the ones who hurt you. But real revenge, the sweetest kind, is living a life so full, so peaceful, so free that they can't touch you anymore. And as I sat on my balcony that evening, warm coffee in hand, city lights below me, I finally understood. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I was whole, and they were still stuck in the house I left behind.